Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch or fast
It's probably the sexy part of organizing. It's okay. No. The truth is,
I'm joined by Dennis DJ Quinn, an author, mentor, and recovery advocate who's dedicated decades to transforming lives through compassion and storytelling. DJ's journey is as real as it gets. For over 13 years, he mentored Mike, a little brother facing disabilities, fostered youth systems, and eventually the harrowing challenges of mental illness. DJ didn't walk away. Instead, he wrote Stick Figures, A Brother Remembers, a memoir that honors Mike, shines light on teen mental health, addiction, and the complexity of human love and resilience. Raised in a big family in Montana, DJ has spent 30 years of weaving humor, insight, and authenticity into his writing, from labor union publications to heartfelt memoir. He now lives in Gig Harbor, Washington, volunteering, writing, and sharing the richness of life's untold moments. So get ready for a deeply personal conversation, one that will stretch your understanding of what it means to mentor, to grieve, to honor, and ultimately to grow. How's it going, DJ? You go by DJ or Dennis?
I write by DJ, but it's Dennis, so you can.
Okay, good. Because every time I see DJ, I get flashbacks of when I used to DJ. Yeah. So.
No, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. I didn't know who you were talking about there for a few minutes. But, and I want to congratulate you, too, on your 10-year success with this podcast. That's great.
Well, thank you.
It's great to hear. So congrats.
All right, so before we get into your mentoring work and your book, I want to give listeners a sense of who you are and where your journey began. So and I hear how beautiful Montana is from other guests I've had on. So what was life like growing up in Montana, and how did that shape your perspective on people and community?
My life was really good growing up in Montana. I'm the second oldest of 9 kids. And
9?
9.
Wow.
So that allowed me a lot of learning how to manipulate other people and to get along with other people, because it was a requirement in order to survive in that kind of an environment that you got along. Yeah. But I grew up there from the time I was very young. My dad was in the Navy when I was born in San Diego. And then about a year later, they moved back to Montana. They're both originally from Montana. And he was a dentist, had a private practice, and my mom was a full-time mom at home, taking care of all of us. And
right.
When I look back on it, it was really simple. You grew up just knowing the basis of what's right, what's wrong. We were raised Catholic. I went to Catholic schools for about 4 years in elementary schools till they closed down, and then also the college I ended up going to in Helena was a Catholic college also.
Okay.
But so it was very, you're brought up in that faith and those beliefs, and that was part of the foundation for life. Montana itself was always, there were you learn geography basically.
Right.
In life, there's Montana and there's out-of-staters. And that was how life was. It was very, very, very white. There were very, very few minorities other than the American Indian natives. And a lot of those folks lived on reservations and whatnot, and we just basically I didn't have much contact with them. My school, the high school I went to was about 1,300 kids, and
wow.
And then the college I went to was about the same size. So, and I lived there, grew up there, graduated from college there with a degree in accounting, and I had traveled a little bit during college. And from that point, rather than looking for good accounting jobs, I had decided I wanted to be a flight attendant, and so I applied to several major airlines, and shortly after I got out of college, I was hired by Northwest Airlines and went based in Minneapolis.
Oh, wow.
So that's where, and that coming from Montana, that was a huge exposure to other people, other beliefs, other lifestyles, other racial, other customs. And that was a real eye opener for me. And it was a real good thing. It was a way to, broaden my horizons, make some new friends, learn to live independently, and got to see a lot of the world and a lot of the United States. And it was a lot of fun.
My sister does that now and loves it. Loves being a flight attendant.
Yeah. So I was going to do that for a year or two, and 26 years later, I had to.
I guess you loved it too.
And I don't think my parents were real great with the idea, especially my mom initially. She said, "You went to 4 years of college to do that," and then when they started traveling on passes and going to places, it became a really great job.
Yeah. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but being a flight attendant, you're not even working 5 days a week, are you?
No. It was basically, when we first started, there were 10 days off a month, and you were on call. And then as you moved along, it was probably 13 days you were working a month, 13, 14, somewhere in that time frame. And you had a lot of flexibility in moving things around and where you went to as you gained seniority. It was, there was a lot of flexibility, and that was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Right.
And you met a lot of people, went to different places. And that's one of the, that's why I got into the mentoring almost, is because I had so much time off initially when I first started flying. So
I was going to say, you could probably write a whole nother book just on the people and the stories while being a flight attendant.
Yeah, there's some good stories that have followed with us. And actually some of them, I think there's one person from my flight attendant class we were in September of 79 that is still flying today. The rest, there were 34 of us. Yeah. But she's still flying today. I used to fly with a really good friend of mine who just retired. So I'd hear updates frequently. Yeah. So it was a good deal.
Wow. It's, and I'm sure you've probably met several celebrities and all that too, but that's a whole nother podcast. Actually, that's interesting. I might have to do a podcast with different flight attendants. Wow. I wonder why my sister never mentioned that to me about, hey, you should do that. All right. So Dennis, excuse me, you've worn many hats over the years, a writer, a mentor, flight attendant, volunteer. When did you first realize that helping others was going to be part of your life's purpose?
I was going to be a Catholic priest when I was growing up.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And that I had planned to do all through grade school, probably through junior high, and then into high school. But then that became less appealing when I discovered orgasms and money, because celibacy and poverty didn't sound like a great future. So I decided I was going to be a doctor, and then I went to school specifically to be in pre-med. I did the first year. By the second year, I was thinking, no, I didn't really care to do that.
Didn't like that.
Right. And so I looked for some social work to do over summer, and it was either they wanted you to be 21, a college graduate, or, and the only thing they found, they were going to give you a $50 a month stipend. I'd make that money in tips at one night at the place I was in. Plus, my younger brother was only 5 years old at the time, and I was working in a daycare center. And I thought, that's a waste of my time to do that. So when we were growing up watching TV, they used to have advertisements on TV for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, looking for volunteers to spend time with a kid that didn't have a father in the home. And I told one of my sisters, I said, if I ever move away from home, I think I'll do that. Yeah. So when I got into Minneapolis and started flying, I had a lot of time off, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna do that. And that's where I, go into it, think you're going to save this kid, you're going to change his whole life, all of that kind of stuff. And I found out pretty quickly that it wasn't about that. It was about just being a friend to him, helping him out, doing things with him. And what that did for
bond.
Right. And what that did for me is it really created an anchor for when I was first started flying, because people were moving bases or commuting from different towns. They were, rather than live in Minnesota. And for me, I had a commitment to stay there. And so I actually worked with him for 4 years and then remained friends with him until he was killed last November in a automobile accident at work. But that turned out to be a great friendship. And I can see how it helped me. I saw how different people lived, I met him when he was 11, and at his age, I had a paper route and I was using the money to upgrade my bicycle. At his age, he had a paper route, and he was sharing that with his mother to help pay the rent. And so it was a real contrast to where I came from. I lived with there are 9 kids in the house, and it was always him and his mother. And it was great. It was a good experience. He was a quiet kid.
Yeah.
We did all kinds of stuff together, and almost every week or every other week for the whole 4 years I lived in Minnesota. And then beyond that, we would keep in touch, did some traveling together. I ended up being best man when he got married, and godfather to his son, who I think is 30 today. I think he's 30 today, or 31.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then when I applied for Mike several years later, I knew what I was getting into, that this was going to be a different, it was going to be a commitment. It wasn't just, meet him, do a few things, and then you're out of their life. So when I met him, he was much different. He was a handicapped kid. He had been in the foster system he was 7 years old, had been in the foster system for the last 5 years prior to meeting him, and was being adopted by a 63-year-old single woman who had been his foster mother for most of the time for the past 5 years, because she was afraid he was going to get lost in the foster system. And her daughter, her adult daughter and family lived nearby, and they were helping out with raising Mike. And so that was the first night I met him. I thought, man, I don't know what's going to go on with this, because it was so different. And he had a trouble speaking and just very expressive. I met him, he gave me a big bear hug around the waist, and when you first met him, and I just knew that this was going to be real different. I said, to myself, someday I'm going to write a book about this. I had no clue what was going to go on. And then it turned out to be a 13-year journey that we traveled together. And it was pretty powerful. It impacted my life deeply. He made great progress when I met him, with his speech, with schoolwork, learning to read, with his social boundaries, all of those sort of things. And then he developed the mental illness, and life took a real drastic turn. So,
what were some of the early moments with Mike that made you realize that the relationship was going to change both of your lives?
At first, I called one night to set up a meeting, for the next week with his mother. He called her his mother, Betty, that's her name. And she said, he's not here. He's up at the children's hospital or whatever. And I said, well, what's going on? And here he was in the psych unit, she said. And I thought, well, she must have had some overreaction to his teenage behavior. And, so I went up there and visited him, and he didn't really have a sense of why he was there. He told me that, I said, you just, keep helping and keep doing what they're saying, and they can help you out. And he says, well, I'm trying. I'm not washing my hands all the time because I don't want them to think I'm crazy. And it became apparent to me that he didn't know why he was there. He didn't know, but he knew that some things were happening that he just didn't have control about.
Right.
And then I proceeded to see him, and then from that it moved to group. He got too dangerous to live with his adoptive mother, so he was then in from group homes to foster homes to running away to back in the group homes to back, and you never really knew where he was when you'd call to see if you could get together with him, and sometimes you'd never know what condition he would be in, and when you saw him, and so for me it became a point of having to see, what am I going to do with this? Am I wasting my time here? Because it was hard to get any reaction to him. But I made the decision that, I would hang in there because I really wanted him to know that there was somebody, his adoptive mother by that time was aging and having difficulty cognitively. And so I just wanted him to know that, hey, you got a friend that's here for you and somebody from your past, and kind of maintain that tie. And so that's what we continue to do.
Mentorship, and I always push for people to have a mentor or mentors, but mentorship comes with joys and challenges. What were some of the most rewarding times for you, especially with Mike, and what were some of the toughest?
Some of the toughest were going to visit him when he was hospitalized. There were two different, he was in one place for about a year and a half, and another place for almost a little over a year. And just leaving that, you'd never know what you were going to see when you get there. And sometimes he would be doing better and it'd be a little uplifting. And other times I would see it and just think, this is hopeless. And one time, probably one of the hardest time was the last place he was at, which was a state mental hospital. One day he tells me, I can go out on passes. And so, okay. Who's the mixed up one? I took him out on a pass, and the sign out, I thought they'd have this whole list of stuff, and it was nothing like that. And we went to Burger King and had lunch. And when I was having lunch with him, it was just a shell of a human being that I was having lunch with. He wasn't there. His body was deteriorating. And so then we went to the movie, and halfway through it, he got up to go to the bathroom and he didn't come back. And so here I am, and you're talking to the cop, and you tell him, well, the guy goes, oh, he's an escapee, huh? And I said, no, he was on a pass with me. And that cop looked at me like, you are the craziest person I know. Take somebody out.
Wow.
But what happened is then that night I went back to the mental hospital, and they told me they had terrible news about him, but then they wouldn't give me any information because I hadn't signed a release. He hadn't signed a release. But when I was driving home, they encouraged him to call me, and here he had gone out of the movie theater across to the grocery store and pulled a bottle of bleach off the shelf and started drinking and tried to kill himself.
Oh no.
So that was just real hard to understand. I mean, you just knew at that point that he is really, he is really, really mixed up, and the sweet little guy that you used to know has transformed completely into something different,
Yeah.
But I would still go up and visit him. I never took him out again. I'd go up and see, and every couple of weeks we'd go there, and they'd put us in a locked room where we'd play chess, and sometimes, they're just wild stuff going on outside the room. Sometimes one time we got locked. They locked us in a room where all around us we were playing chess, and there were huge tubs of all the underwear of all the people on the floor, coming to or from the laundry. And I didn't know. You didn't know whether they were going to the laundry or coming back from the laundry.
Oh God.
And I'd get, I'm not really, I'm a pretty bright guy most times, but I would be up locked in situations like that, and I would get my butt whipped in chess every single time. And it's this whole dichotomy of, what's what does he understand and what doesn't he understand?
Right.
And he had no control. He got less verbal every time they medicated him. If he started talking a lot, when they then would pull him off the medications, he'd start talking a lot, but the weird behaviors would come back. He would learn stuff like at one place he learned that if he threw up after he eat, he wouldn't gain weight. And so he went through a period of bulimia. And that whole question of what am I doing? And I got so every time before I went in to see him, I would stop and I'd pray a little bit that, just make this good for Mike. Whatever happens, whatever it is, whatever we do, make it good, something good for him. And I believe it was. I believe having that connection was helpful for him. It was certainly helpful for me. It was tough, but it opened my eyes to a lot of it. And a lot of it was good humor when you're outside there, you tell people about stuff that had happened, and it's,
you learned a lot as well, didn't you? Right.
And one time we were in a place, we were playing chess, and there was a man in there who was up, he brought pizza up for his son for dinner. And that guy was really, really handicapped. And all he kept saying is, I want to go home. I want to go home. God. And you knew that he was never going home. And those kind of things would really rip me up. And it made me very aware. It made me aware of people who the housing challenges were so bad that it made me very aware that there are people who are living independently, who may have some disabilities and whatnot, and how difficult it is for them to do that, and how difficult it is for them to find appropriate housing. And so I still have some friends. Yeah. And I still have some friends in that situation that, get together every once in a while for coffee and just, so it was no hero thing. It was just a guy who shows up, and that's a lot of things. I've learned that I think that is really helpful. I heard one woman on a podcast, a minister, say that she would visit juvenile facilities, and she had no magic wand. She had no fix, no solution. But what she had was a ministry of presence, of showing up and being present for these folks every once in a while. And I kind of try to operate on that is, I can come in and sit down or share a couple minutes, an hour with you and whatnot. And we can see what's going on and try to cheer them up a little, make them laugh. And that's a good day.
What are some of the, profound lessons you took away from your time together with him?
It made me question everything I believed. How does a child get put on this earth in a situation with a mother that is mentally ill, that has 4 children already that are removed from the home? How come he has those challenges? How did he land in a woman's house as a foster mother who gave him a chance at life and did a fabulous job of that and advocated for him and took care of him and showed him love, and then to all of a sudden get your developmental illness and all bets are off. Why did that happen? And there's no understanding. There's no, I question that a lot. And, as I believe firmly that anything that's difficult that you go through and come out the other end, you can help somebody with. But that is just, it is so hard. And it is so hard I can't imagine what it's like for a biological or a real parent. I was a couple hours and here's your kid back kind of thing. But for somebody who's going through that all the time, it's a tremendous challenge.
Oh yeah, it is. From your perspective, what does real mentorship look like, and what misconceptions do people often have about it?
I think the misconception that people have is similar to what I had at first, is that you're going to go in there and you're going to fix this guy or this gal and you're going to change their life to be how you think it should be. What reality is going in there and being committed to help them, to listen to them, to talk with them, to share some of your own experience. The most powerful thing doesn't come from me telling you what you need to do. It's from, this is what happened to me in a similar situation.
Right. Sharing those lived experiences.
Right. And so I think that's what mentorship is more or less. I had an experience with Mike where he was having a real difficult day with his speech. And I always had him whenever we'd go places, order his own food or anything like that. And the people would just glare at him trying to figure out what he was saying. But, to give him that opportunity to do that and practice doing that. But one day he had a really bad time and he would start crying and he just couldn't do it. And I pulled over and talked to him for a minute. And I told him, hey, Mike, I used to have to go to speech therapy too. And he's like, what? And I said, I had to go to speech therapy. And I was so embarrassed. I never told my brothers and sisters I was going. It was the second or third grade. And then I started mimicking how I used to talk. And he just thought it was hilariously funny. But I just said, I can't fix it for you, but you keep going and you keep working and it will get better. I know it'll get better for you, not fixed, but better. And he, from that day forward, we never had a time where he had a meltdown with his speech. I'm sure he did, but when we were together, he never did. And I really think that helped him to know that, hey, he had speech problems too. And so it's sharing you that experience that really helps you.
I think when you do that too, it helps build a trust.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, let's face it, when it comes to the Big Brother, Big Sister program, that's one of the things they're looking for is somebody they can trust.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I don't know if it's the same. You have Big Brother and Big Sister, right? Mm-hmm. But that's different from the Boys and Girls Club, correct?
Correct. Okay. I'm not how I'm involved with a Big Brother, Big Sister program. I don't speak for them, but I'm just a volunteer in their program. Right. And they have the Boys and Girls Club is a different organization completely. And
that's what I thought.
And they have probably more group oriented things where the Big Brothers, Big Sisters has been a one-to-one mentoring.
One-to-one
type thing is what their foundation was initially. And I believe that's still their primary one, maybe in different situations and out in the community. And some of them, they do school programs, that sort of thing in schools. Yeah. But just to establish with it for the boys at the time I was matched with Scott in Minnesota, it was, what they told me they were looking for the kids that were on the list. Priority was children that didn't have a consistent adult male contact. Like if they had an uncle or somebody that really was spending time with them, they probably weren't as high as a priority to match.
Right.
Yeah.
You've also worked with teens in the juvenile court system, especially in the recovery programs.
Right.
What actually drew you to that work?
I've been in recovery for quite a while, and there is the belief of helping share the message, and there's a lot of folks over here who are active in corrections. They have some that go out to the women's prison. They have some that go to the county jails and the men's prison. And then they had a group that would go out to the juvenile detention center. And these are people who probably from 14 to 17, once they age out at 18, they're into the adult system.
Right.
But, so I started doing that. Somebody encouraged me to do it with this group. And so there's a group of us that go, various guys that go over there probably 3 times a month, and just
nice.
And we used to have sit down meetings with them, but then their staffing levels have reached the point where we have to go into the individual pods of guys and meet with them and it's always an adventure. I mean, if you are 16, you don't have any problem with alcohol or drugs. The fact that you might be in there because you were a little bit loaded and stole a bunch of stuff and beat somebody up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good. You don't have a problem, but here's where you can find some help when you decide if you need some help. And there are some people there that kids that really listen to us, some others that just don't even bother with us. But the focus on that is to to let them know that there's a place where when you need it, or your friends need it, or somebody in your family needs it, this is a place you can look for help, where people who are willing to help you, who aren't going to charge you any money, don't want anything but to help you. And that helps us coming over. Since COVID, we used to have a lot of kids that were in there like real short term, but since then the shutdown and COVID, and then when we went back after COVID, like starting about a year ago, the population that's in there is pretty much long term. There's a lot of kids in there with felony charges: assault, murder, robbery. And you're talking to people who are charged with murder at age 15, 14. And what's the message? The message is still the same. This is someplace where if these things are happening, you can get some help. And that's why we do. And the fact that they're there long term, and it's a lot of the same guys that are coming back every, 3 times a month, you meet some of them that begin to trust you, and they begin, they start to ask you, and what can I do to help, or where can I find some help? And that, so some of that is you hope that it pays off long term for them. Right. If you talk to them, a lot of, I would say 99% of them, the family structure that they were in has been real rough, and there's issues with some people in gangs that are looking for that connection, that my buddies, my homies, and if you can. That's why the Big Brother and youth mentoring programs, I think, are so important, because if you can show them an example of somebody that isn't caught up in the gang life, or has gone through certain things that they do, that it's real valuable. Break it off earlier, And there are people who.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There are people who come out the other end. I mean, I know guys who've spent a lot of time in prison that are, in recovery and helping work other people who do the same, So,
and that's all state and local, right? Not federal.
It's right. It's county is where we go.
Okay.
All
right. Yeah. Cause I know, if I'm not mistaken, if they're in on with federal charges or federal holding prisons or whatever, they transfer them to other prisons every so often, which I guess in a way makes sense. I don't know. I guess have to be a real bad crime to be on federal, first of all. At some point, you decided to turn all these deeply personal experiences into a book. So I want to talk about how Stick Figures came to life. What inspired you to write Stick Figures?
What inspired me to write it was, like I said initially when I met Mike, that I thought that I would write something for him, about us. And so it was written over a period of time. About 5 years ago, some during COVID, and some when I retired, then finished it up. The Stick Figures itself, when I was matched with him, they told me he has a trouble with transitions, immediate transitions. So when you're out with him, you can't say, let's go. It has to be 3 minutes, 5 minutes. We're leaving in 5 minutes. We're leaving in 3. We're leaving in.
Interesting. Okay.
So what I did was I met him in December, and I gave him a calendar that I had made, and it had the date we match written in the date, the square. And I gave him that so that he would have something where they could write down when we're going to get together again, so that if he had to look at it, he could see it. And what happened with that was, every time we would go out somewhere, and then we'd come back and sit down with his mom for a while and talk, and she'd say, go get your calendar. And he'd go get the calendar so we could write down the next thing. But I started drawing little stick figures of what we had done that day.
Oh, wow.
Whether we're running or bike riding and that is the pinnacle of my artistic ability, is just little stick figures. It ranks right behind my chess playing abilities. But so he had probably over a 3 or 4 year time, he had these calendars, and he would get them sometimes when we're sitting there, and he'd look back and see what we did, or what, if we went to the football game, the score was written down, who won, and that. And so it was a memory for him. It was a history of what we had done. After the mental illness took hold, the calendars got lost in one of the many, many moves. So
right.
We didn't have that. But what the book, how the book ties into it at the end, the stick figure, and that's where that came from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was our way of, and we'd sit down, him and his mom, and the poodle would be there, Jake the poodle, and it was kind of fun because you'd look back and say, oh yeah, that was, we went to the Husky game that day or whatever. Yeah.
Well, and the book deals a lot with love, loss, and the complexity of helping someone in crisis. Mm-hmm. So how were you able to balance being honest while still showing compassion while writing this?
I had some people, I had people read it. I had people help me with it. And I have one person in particular that was a writing instructor and who I've maintained contact with. And she's really great. She's really helpful. And she knew enough about it that she would say, hey, what about this? Or what else is this? Mm-hmm. Or if I tell her an episode, she said, they have to be in it. And for Mike, then some of the things, one person who read it, who was a mental health counselor, told me that some of the terminology I was using to describe these things were pretty offensive to her. So it was able to, weird, that kind of stuff. So that helped string it out. There were some incidences with the agency itself that I had that were part of the story. For example, probably the first one was when I went to be matched with Mike. I had been a big brother in Minnesota, and I had been, at that time I was not out as a gay man, and I told them I was straight, and they said, that's fine. It's, we have to ask everybody that, and the mother is told, and it's up to their decision whether they want, it doesn't preclude you from being a volunteer. When I went to the Seattle orientation meeting, the guy stood up there the first night, well, these volunteers, and said, we're looking for heterosexual role models for our kids. And it just blew me. By this time I was out. And so I asked him after, and I got nowhere with it. And I went to see the executive director the next day, and they had a lawsuit about 5 years before where somebody had assaulted a kid, and the mom and kid sued him successfully. And so they decided they were going to handle their pedophilia problem by restricting. They're not going to take any gay applicants, regardless of how much experience you have, regardless about who you are. And at the same time, they had a couple hundred kids on their waiting list for big brothers and sisters who would never get them because they didn't have enough volunteers. And so I spoke to him a lot, and I expressed my opinion that you're not screening out pedophilia. You're forcing people to lie to you, or you're because there are people, and you're going to have kids that are going to come back to you who are gay, that down the line, it's, you're going to tell them, forget it. We helped you out, but you can't help us. So anyway,
the other thing is too, with that is, it's straight men do that too. Mm-hmm. And so wow.
And see, I had already had a 4-year stint with this kid, and he was out there. His mother was out there. They could have checked with that, but it was just, no, we're not even going to accept applicants. And I believe very firmly that they were denying kids had to having big brothers and big sisters because of that. So I wrote him a letter, and about 6 months later, the executive director called me and told me and this policy that they had, they were only one of 5 chapters in the United States that had that policy at that time. The rest, it was that, we tell the mother they have the final say. And so he called me about 6 months later and told me that they had changed their policy in line with the national organization to accept gay applicants. And I told him at that point, I wouldn't be in right away, but I would be in. And so at that time, finally, about 6 months later, both myself and my husband now applied, and we were both matched with little brothers of the same age at the same time. And so occasionally we would do stuff together with them and that.
Nice.
But and so but I felt we were under a real heavy microscope of, you're working with an agency that had that policy for 4 or 5 years, and they're not going to change overnight. And ran into a couple incidences with them that but
Wow.
it all worked out good. But I put that stuff in there because it was part of the story, and it's also part of the story that, that being
needs to be told.
Yeah. Right. And so it was, it was good. I mean, was involved last year with Big Brothers here doing a school lunch thing that they had, when matched us. It was called Lunch Buddies. You'd go twice a month and have lunch with the kids, or try to, if you could get them to sit down. And I won the wildest one in the whole group.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if these little boys, they're like 7 years old. And the last lunch, I remember sitting there in the library would eat, and all the women and their little girls are sitting there talking, and all the big brothers are just sitting there by themselves. And around us are all the little boys running and shoving and doing their
God.
But they aren't having that next year. So I'm in the process of finding out what I'm going to be doing with them soon. But
they need to put a bunch of donuts out there. The kids will stop. With the book, what I love asking this question. What was the most emotionally difficult chapter to write, and why?
Probably the fun ones or the good stuff that we did. Those were pretty easy. The ones, there's one where we're playing chess out in the outside of this outside of this group home, in the courtyard of this group home, and people are playing football and swearing at each other, and we're playing chess, and Mike is really, really dirty. And I think writing that, it was really a core of this is where he's at right now, or this is where he was. And that was pretty emotional. Some of the things at the end were really emotional. But the thing is, if you can laugh, I feel if I can laugh or cry at something I'm writing, then it's I'm on track.
Then it's good. Yeah. It's, to me, a good book, especially something like this. If you cry, you did well in writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, I remember watching this movie, which is a true story, and it was sad, but I didn't cry. Then I got the book afterwards, and the book made me cry. Because, let's face it, a movie's not going to cover as much as the book.
Right.
They dummy it down. They make it shorter, I guess you could say. When a reader finishes your book and only remembers one message, what do you hope it is?
When Mike and I hit 5 years we took a trip down to Disneyland to celebrate 5 years, clearly with his mom and the agency. And we went down there, and the first night we got down there, he is in the hotel room and he's just all fired up. He's really, can we watch a movie? And so he's in the one bed over there. I'm here, and the lights are off, and we are still talking and that. And I mentioned something about what I did for work, working on the planes and that. And I said, do you ever think about what you would like to do when you grow up, Mike? And he was really quiet. And then he said in his broken voice, he says, I just want to be a normal kid. And I was stunned in knowing how to reply, because with the package of challenges he was carrying, to be normal. And so I told him, I said, hey, Mike, you are a normal kid. You like normal things, what other kids do. We like to go to football games together. We like to do this. You like to do those stuff. You're a great kid. And then he said, I got a lucky life. He says, I got a good house. I got my mom. I got Jake, my dog. I got you. He goes, I got a lucky life. And what I always think about is, if that kid, with all his challenges and with all he had going against him, and with the struggle that he faced every day, if he could find some gratitude like that, then by God, I can find some gratitude in my life, whatever is going on. Mm-hmm. And, my husband Joe wanted the book to be named, My Lucky Life, and that was close. But and so I always think of that. We got a lucky life, and we have a chance to heal with whatever's going on with us, whether it's recovery or whether it's financial, anything. You have a chance, and that's what his adoptive mother gave him. She gave him a chance. And she was a saint to do it. And no matter how hard she tried, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how hard anyone around him tried, they couldn't do that at the end. And that's unfortunate. So you look at what's the message he brought. He reminded us that we needed gratitude. He brought other people together. So it was a great experience. And in the end, you just hope he's at peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I wish I could have met him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, God, and Dennis, he is looking down on you now. He is your. I believe in guardian angels. I do believe he is your guardian angel.
He was quite the character, and my partner's little brother had like this kid that was like hyperactive. Very athletic, go. And Mike was the exact opposite. Joe would come home and say, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. And he said, what'd you do? I said, we walked to the car. We got in the car. And I learned very quick. You don't schedule a lot with Mike. You just move at his pace. But
he did kick my ass in chess again.
In the mental institution of all.
Oh, man. And the funny thing is, I used to love playing chess. And I haven't played chess. I don't even know how long. I want to play chess now. I do. I wonder if I could teach my daughter. And it's always better when you can teach somebody how to play, because that means you're going to be winning at first. Right.
You get a head start.
Yeah. I wonder if I could teach her. See if she have any interest. You've actually turned your experiences into lessons that go far beyond your own story. And I want to pull back and look at the bigger picture. So you've proposed topics like 5 gifts from time shared with a handicapped little brother. Can you share what some of those gifts are?
The gifts they've given me is an awareness of what's going on around the world, that I'm, that there are a huge, another is that there is a huge amount of people involved in mental health care that are absolute angels, that are caring for people who cannot care for themselves and who most people could not do. And, I give them hats off to that. There are a tremendous amount of good people in this world doing foster care that are taking care of kids in crisis, and people like Betty, who was an absolute saint and a pleasure to be around, and somebody who was tough as nails. She really gave this kid a chance, and that's all you can do. You gave him a chance, and it didn't turn out. For me, it kind of has questioned. It has been a gift for me that it challenged my spiritual understanding of what's going on. And I don't know who runs the world, how it runs or not, but I know that it's way different than, it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray out there. And for me, it makes me really grateful just for the ability to share that story, the ability to have spent that time with him, to have been able to enjoy the laughs and also the sad times with him. And I will never forget them. I mean, and it's powerful. And I believe very strongly that the gift that my parents gave me of spending time with us and trying to help us learn and trying to put up with our craziness and trying to deal with us, it has made me very grateful for that. It has made me my dad is still alive, and he's a wonderful person. And my brothers and sisters, all of us are pitching in to help him out. And and he one time told my mother when she was locked, well, she wasn't locked up. She was at home with the 9 of us, and who knows? She probably has a very little awareness of what all was going on. But I guess one time she was really frustrated and she was telling my dad, and my sister told me that my dad told her, we don't want to break their spirit. Okay. We want them to, we just don't want to break their spirit. And so my mom had to work around that. And then she would go play the piano when she got really stressed. So he used to love listening to her play the piano, I never knew she was stressed when she would sit down in the middle of the day and start playing. But,
why is she pounding the keys like that? Rock and roll was bored. Mom is playing Jerry Lee Lewis again. Oh man, I am showing my age, aren't I? Wow.
Mike taught me there's a whole different world out there, and that I have a damn lucky life, and I am so grateful for it. And if all the stuff I was given, all the opportunity that I was given, and the grace my parents showed to me, I can take a little bit of time out of my busy day of doing nothing to help somebody else out with something. And I have to remind myself of that all the time, but it's a good place to be in. It's a good place to be in.
Actually, and if someone listening is on the fence about becoming a mentor or volunteer, what would you tell them to help them take that first step?
If it's a time you're concerned about, just look at at your phone and think how many hours a week you spend on your phone. Okay, so the time's not an issue. It's a commitment. So, how would that commitment play for you? But I would remind them that they would get more out of this than the kid will. That they will teach them about themselves, about their boundaries, their abilities. They'll help them see what they've been given in it. You get more out of it than you put into it. And that's a real gift. For me, it has provided stability in my life. It has provided great memories. It has provided people that I have met and the joy of being able to, to carry on a journey like Mike and I did together.
Something very important. Tell everybody your website and where they can find your books.
They can find them on Amazon, but they can get a better deal through me, which is at my website, djquinnauthor.com, djquinnauthor.com. And, that's where they are. They're on Amazon
but they can get an autographed copy if they go to your website.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
That's very important. So you listening, you know what I'm going to say. You go to his website, you purchase the books. After you read them, that's when you go to Amazon and Goodreads and everywhere else and leave a full review, and then buy some more copies for friends of yours.
Right. I had somebody just do that the other day. They had gone on a trip and they sent the Stick Figures book to the people they had stayed with. They were all friends of theirs. And I got a really nice note back from one of them to her friend, got a note back that about the book. And it was, she said she reads a lot, and it was the best book she had written in a long time. And she also had done mental health work, and she liked the fact that I hit that and told the story. The stories were good, and it's not a long read, but it's a good read. And
God, this is going to be a hard question. If Mike was sitting next to you right now and you wanted to tell him something that you never really got the chance to tell him, what would you say to him?
I would probably tell him thank you. I would probably tell him thank you for all the good times we have shared together and all the laughs we have had together, and for being a friend of mine. That's what I would tell him, because I am really grateful. We had a lot of really honest talks about stuff. And I realized where he was at in life, and I know he tried as best he could to cope with what he went through. So I don't think I had anything left unsaid other than tell him thank you. And that's the only thing I had left unsaid to him.
All right. So before I get to my last question, which I have no idea what it's going to be, is there anything you would like to add?
I would just encourage people to go out there. I think it is get involved in something. There are tons of organizations. There are tons of things that you can be involved in. And for me, what I found out, it was the foundation for my life. As busy as I was, I had a commitment to go hang with a 10-year-old or a 7-year-old once, a couple times a month. And it broke me out of my head. You just be present with them, and it's fun. It's rewarding, and there's a huge need for it. And the funding has, is evaporating quickly for a lot of people who need it. And you don't have to fix anybody. You just have to spend some time with them, learn to laugh with them, learn to to enjoy time.
And you can save their life. That's the thing. A lot of people don't realize when you volunteer, not even just volunteering, even just smiling at somebody saying hi, you could be saving that person's life that day because you don't know what they're going through.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So I have 100 different questions here. Don't worry. I'm not going to ask you all 100. But what I need you to do, I need you to pick a number between 1 and 100 and why that number while I'm searching for the question. And I want to see how good you are, because since I've been doing this, I want to say 90% of the time, the question has been aligning with what we've been talking about.
Okay. I will go with, I'll go with 17, which is my birthday. And it's also the day I met Mike, the 17th of December.
Oh, so, okay.
Question 17.
17. Where are you? Okay. Oh, I think somebody did ask this before or pick this number before. Interesting. Okay.
The answer is no.
All right. So wait, before I ask you this question, the weird thing is how things line up in a way. So and I told you before we started, I had an in-person interview. The in-person interview today, guess what it was about? It's a young lady that started a nonprofit helping foster children.
Oh, really? Wow.
And she's a foster parent herself.
Excellent.
It's like, but number 17 has nothing to do with that. What's a question you often ask yourself?
It's probably one of my. It's probably. I would say it's probably. It's a negative question. Am I doing enough? A lot of times I have, but in where it's at now in life, it's like, what am I going to do with the time I have left? I see people dying. I'm, creeping up to 70 in a couple of years, and
that ain't nothing, Dennis.
It's what am I going to do? And it helps me kind of focus on, okay, I'm gonna take care of this or do that. It's what is, as my brother called it, there's this window, and he was in the fourth quarter of his life, and Joe said, no, it's the third period. It's different than that. That's kind of what I wonder a lot is what am I going to do from here on out? And I'm enjoying what I'm doing from here on out right now. And I probably will keep it that way.
I think you're like me. You have a goal to make it to at least 100.
Oh, thank you. My dad's 95 and
Is he really?
Yeah. I don't care to be that age, as he.
My mother-in-law, I want to say, is 91 now and still smart as, she's active on social media and everything.
Yeah.
She's all, and she keeps me straight too. Oh yeah. Yeah. If I say something wrong, now Rich, okay, the mom. But awesome. I could, oh man, love her. 90 some. And
Yeah,
I had a lady on the podcast who's 101.
Wow.
And still has a trainer. She still works out. I was like, what? And she is definitely drinking that water from the fountain of youth because she did not look 101. But then again, what's that even look like nowadays?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, some of the people that I even went to school with, it's like, God, you don't age. It's sickening. It's disgusting. What in the hell are you doing? I don't like it. Yeah, here I am with the white beard and everything.
What scares me about it is my dad, he lives at that's assisted living facility. And one of his comments is, you know, that AI stuff a lot they talk about, he goes, we got a lot of that artificial intelligence here at Dodge Park.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast on just how AI, how AI, a lot of people that are our age are afraid of AI, but yet it's been around since the 40s or 50s.
Mm-hmm. In different forms, yeah.
Yeah, but the way it's progressed, it's like, wow. It's scary.
Yeah.
Scary, but fun. So, Dennis, I want to thank you so much. It's been an honor. And those of you listening, once again, once you purchase the book, and you know where to go, djquinnauthor.com, purchase the books, leave full reviews, and purchase copies for others. Dennis, thanks a lot.
Thanks a million, Rich. I appreciate it. And good luck.
Thank you for listening to the Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. You know, it takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them. And if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com.
The Harford County Health Department can help eligible pregnant women and children with low to average incomes get free health insurance through the Maryland Children's Health Program. Call 410-877-1040. That's 410-877-1040.